What up, heavy mommies? Welcome to this is going to be the first video of this kind, but this is going to be a video where I talk about a lens that I hold really near and dear to me, although I will tell you in a minute something that might contradict that information. But what I am holding right here is the Canon 24-105 f4L USM lens. It is a fantastic lens. You can see it comes with a lens hood. It's weather sealed. I'll try to bring this. Yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Oh, beautiful. It zooms out. You can see it kind of gives it a nice little extendo there. And of course, here's the rear element there. This is a fantastic lens. It was my kit lens. It was what came with my EOS R. I bought it almost a year ago now. I bought it, I think, in August of last year during the pandemic. And it was my first upgrade to a full frame. And this was my first L series lens ever. Before that, I literally had a 18-55 Mark II crop sensor, like APS-C. And then I had a 55-250. And those were the only two lenses that I owned. Neither of them nearly as close in image quality or anything like that. So let's go ahead and let's just kind of break down some of the things that I really like. This lens is really good, okay? It's not amazing, but it can take really nice images. And one of the things that really drew me to buying the EOS R and the kit was really the future proofing, right? Mirrorless is the future. It is where everything is going. And I didn't really see a point in buying a DSLR knowing that kind of everybody's getting on mirrorless and that new mirrorless Canon cameras were coming out. And at the time that I bought the EOS R, the R5 and the R6 were already out, and I consciously made a decision to get the EOS R. It was much cheaper, and I could get a lot more bang for my buck. And I bought it at Adorama, got an amazing deal where I got the camera, tripods, a fucking it's like a card holder, you know, like a zipper card holder for the SD cards. It came with so many different things, a lens cleaning kit, etc. And it was a perfect way to get started, considering a lot of what I had in terms of camera gear. I already had a nice tripod, but it never hurts to have extras, right? One of them breaks. But I didn't have anything that could go with the full sensor, you know, the full frame. So I needed to upgrade. I needed to do this in order to just improve my capabilities as a photographer, because I kind of hit the limit where I could not go any further with my T3i. I bought it back in 2013, and I got those two lenses bundled with it, and that was kind of my dabbling into a DSLR. And I held on to that thing for 7 years, you know, and I just hit a point where it was no longer doing what I wanted to do. It definitely did not have a lot of the features that I need, especially something like that I'm using right now, which is the autofocus, which the EOS R is really good. Its autofocus is good. Its IAF is pretty good. I know the new ones are way better, but for me, this is such an upgrade from what I had before that this is good enough. So when I got the camera, I initially only had this lens. I only had the 24-105. It didn't take long before I went and bought the 35 prime, and we'll talk about that a little later. But for sure, this lens was the lens I was using for, you know, everything. I was using this lens for everything. I was playing with various focal lengths. I shot some things fully open of course, fully open at f4 because it's already, you know, it's not that fast of a lens. But also, you know, at the 24 millimeters, I was shooting a lot at that. And pretty much anytime I did portraiture, I pretty much almost exclusively went all the way into 105. I really like it for a lot of things, but I don't love it for any one thing. And I think that's the reason why I'm deciding to sell it, which is, spoiler alert, is that this thing is already sold. I actually have to ship it tomorrow. So part of the reason why this video is maybe not going to have as much production value as I might do with future lens things is just because this sold kind of quickly. I wasn't expecting this to sell today, and it did. And I've been sick the past week when I originally was kind of planning on recording some of these. So I just don't have enough time to like shoot B-roll and do anything too crazy with this particular video. But that being said, this lens is awesome. I really do like the 24-105, and I think as a starter lens, it is an awesome lens that will serve you well and will do a lot of things really well. It won't do anything perfectly, and there are other lenses that will do a better job at almost everything that that thing does. But its ability to run and gun shoot and to cover a wide range of things, especially on a bright day where you have plenty of light, I mean, you really can't beat it. It's a great first L series lens for somebody, and I think a great kit lens. And you know, maybe the cheaper version of this maybe is more worth it for some people because it is significantly cheaper, but it doesn't have that constant f4 aperture, and it's not weather sealed or anything like that. So there are definitely some downsides to getting the cheaper version, and probably on image quality as well, which I do want to talk about that. So the image quality on this camera is really nice. I gotta say, it's really nice. I think the pictures that come out are incredibly sharp. A lot of things are in focus. Being at f4, you know, a lot of things should be in focus. And I was able to get some really solid like nature pictures, surprisingly. You had to be able to get close, but luckily I was able to. So we'll take a look at a couple photos that I've taken here, and we can kind of scroll through these, and who knows how much I edit and cut out here. But so if you look here, we have a pretty nice, slightly soft focus on this like butterfly here. Kind of looks like a moth, but I looked it up. It actually is a butterfly. And I believe that this is what's truly in focus. Yeah, is this. But you can see it has a nice depth of field, and in this case, I believe I was zoomed all the way in to 105. Let's see. Yeah, I was all the way at 105, and in fact, I was at f5 for this because it was pretty bright out at 1/400 of a second. So pretty good, pretty nice. I definitely like the image that came out of that. This one is a little bit sharper. So this is similar. It's actually not the same one, I don't think. I believe that this was a different. It's the same species, but a different one. And as you zoom in, I mean, you really can see in terms of pixel peeping, like the shit's sharp. I mean, you can see the fuzzy details on the body of this thing. It's just honestly incredible what it was able to do. And this is pretty damn sharp too. These pictures are kind of my inaugural run with this camera as well as with this lens. So you'll see. So this is another one, another beautiful butterfly. Incredible colors that are happening on the wings here. And it looks like the wings even have some damage there, huh? They're missing some pieces. But yeah, beautiful, tack sharp. I mean, the stuff looks really good. And this was all autofocus. You know, I really learned to rely on the autofocus. You know, previously using my T3i, I honestly did a lot of stuff in manual focus, just because the autofocus was not nearly as good, not nearly as effective. Certainly didn't have the same coverage that the EOS R sensor has, so nowhere near the same image quality. Here's another one. This was taken at my friend and roommate Joey's parents' house, and they had these awesome little things all around. Their pool area is really well decorated, and I really like this like frog thing. And you can see this is very sharp. I shot this at 105 at f4 with 1/80th of a second, with an ISO of 400. And you know, I will say, when I was shooting with this camera, especially on this in particular, this is all part of the same batch. It was all the same weekend that we went down to his parents' place. And like, I didn't fully know this camera that well. So the fact that I wasn't fully comfortable with the settings, I didn't really know how I needed to push it. Like at this point now, I feel very comfortable with this camera. I feel like I know, you know, how much ISO I'm willing to crank. I feel like I understand a lot more about what I want out of the camera, what I think each lens is capable of doing. That is some stuff that, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't, you know, I had camera experience and I had been shooting with a camera for 7 years, but I'd never had one that had the kind of features and the capabilities that this one would have. This, you know, this is my first full frame. But I still like to think that some of these images still turned out really nice. And I mean, when you zoom in, this is like at like 200%. We can zoom out a little bit. But when you zoom in, you'll see like this is very much, you know, this is very much a sharp image. It's got a nice bokeh. Excuse me. It's got a nice bokeh. And this stuff just looks good, you know. It really does take some nice pictures. I mean, even this, the bokeh, again, shot all the way at 105, because I tended to zoom all the way in a lot with this lens. And part of the reason why I wanted to replace this lens is because I now have lenses that do a better job of that. But at the time, this is the only one that I had. With this one, I shot it at, it looks like f13, 1/60th of a second, which are kind of weird settings, honestly. And that, again, comes with me just like experimenting. But that being said, I really like how sharp Joey looks. I think the lighting was really awesome in this time. This was like right around sunset, and just the contrast of I forgot what they call these trees when they're like the blue color, but I just love the contrast of the yellow light, you know, hitting his face, and then you had like the blue like Christmas tree. And then this was actually in the same spot, but just playing with the lighting a little differently. Pretty cool. And then Joey went and took a couple pictures of me as well. So yeah, so that was cool. Those are some portrait shots. Let's go ahead and look at some of the astro photos. So this is not the best astro lens at all. And in fact, the lens that I'm shooting on right now is probably a way better astro lens. Right now I'm shooting on the 15-35 f2.8. And this is like my new favorite lens. This is my YouTube lens for sure. And that lens is a lens I can't wait. I haven't been able to go to a dark sky since I've gotten the lens, but definitely look forward to seeing it. So if you look at this picture here, I shot this at 24 millimeters, you know, obviously zoomed all the way out, and I had it wide open at f4, and I shot it for about 30 seconds with an ISO of 400. So if you know anything about the 500 rule in astrophotography, which at the time that I shot this I really didn't, you would know that 30 seconds is entirely too long for 24 millimeters f4. It's just too long. So if you actually look, a lot of these stars are definitely not round. There's definitely a little bit of trailing going on. And that comes from my lack of knowledge at the time. I like to think I've taken much better astro photos since, but this was my first dabble in astrophotography. This is the first time I had a camera that really could do it. This one was shot for 25 seconds, 24 millimeters at f4. And again, probably too long, but these are a little bit more passable in terms of the the end result here. Same thing with these. This is also 25 seconds, ISO of 200. And then this one was really cool. So this one was at 1500 seconds with an ISO of 100 at 24 millimeters f5.6. So this picture in particular, I wanted the star trails. That was what I was going for. You can kind of see the American flag here, or I guess this is the Cubs flag, but I think they have an American flag on that pole as well. So this was cool. My first time experimenting with astro, and this lens is definitely not the best one for that. I actually really wouldn't recommend it for that. I would recommend a faster prime. But in fact, the 35 prime, which we could talk about in a bit here, way better for that, and it takes really nice photos. This right here, amazing architecture. This is the Baha'i Temple here in it's in Chicago. It's actually in Evanston specifically. Just unbelievable architecture. You can see a little bit of chromatic aberration for sure. This was shot at f10, 1/100 with an ISO of 100. It was a pretty bright day if I remember correctly. And this was a really cool time where I really got to play around with looking at the architecture. I took a number of photos of my girlfriend, and some of my favorites that I've ever taken of her were with this lens, and we're with this lens probably at 105. It's a nice place for portraiture. A lot of people were taking like wedding photos and graduation photos and stuff there at the time, and it really is beautiful. This here was shot at f10, 1/50th of a second at 93 millimeters. So again, this is where I definitely know settings better. So, some of these settings in my early times of messing around and playing with them, they're going to be a little wonky, and you got to forgive me for that. But that being said, I still like to think I got some pretty good images out of it. This one was shot at f10, 1/50th of a second with an ISO of 100. And you can see there's a little bit of motion blur there because I didn't have it get at a fast enough shutter speed. But that comes with just me learning, and that's something that I definitely got better with. But funny enough, as I got better, I stopped using this lens and I used other lenses. And it's not because this lens isn't good, but it's just the ones that I bought in particular ended up kind of replacing this, or did a better job at doing things than this lens does. So this one was shot at f10. So I shot a lot of f10. So I'm wondering if I just wasn't paying attention to the aperture there. But I shot this at f10, 24 millimeters, ISO of 100. It also could have been that it was really bright, and so I was trying to. And you know, honestly, f10 when I'm trying to get this whole building in focus, that kind of makes sense. But the architecture of this place is absolutely amazing. I mean, look at this. Oh, rich ones on earth, the poor in your midst are my trust. Guard ye my trust. And you can just see, I mean, like, the architecture in this is incredible. Just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful temple of worship, and certainly just has amazing architecture that is more than worth looking at. Because I have different needs and have a different lens that I want now, doesn't mean that this camera, or that this lens in particular, will not do a good job for you. It definitely will. And if you've never owned an L series lens before, I highly recommend this one as your first one. This right here is a fascinating beehive. This is definitely, I have a set of these. Definitely some of my favorite pictures, because when you zoom into this motherfucker, I mean, you can see all the little bees, dude. All of them just kind of hanging out, doing their thing in their little hive. And it's not a little hive. It's definitely, that is a pretty big hive there. And you can see in this one too. The only thing that I kind of wish that I would have changed about this image is that I wish I would have cranked the ISO a little bit, because I could have made the shutter speed a little bit faster, and I would have maybe gotten a little more sharpness out of it. But I think I still didn't fully understand how much you really could push this camera, because it really can handle a lot. So in conclusion, I think the 24-105 f4L lens is more than worth your time, especially if you're just getting started in the full frame mirrorless world. I think for RF glass, I think this is a beautiful lens that is more than capable of doing anything that you need it to do. It's very versatile. It's perfect run and gun. If you want to do some street photography, I think that this lens is awesome. It's certainly not going to not draw attention, because it's kind of big, but it's not overly too large, honestly. I don't find it to be that cumbersome. The lens I have on right now, the 15-35 f2.8, that motherfucker is huge. Okay, that thing's much bigger and much heavier. This lens, to me, is like a really nice size. It's a good length. I don't mind that it extends out. I know some people have a problem with that. It is weather sealed. It does have like an air gap for it to allow air to pass through. So, you know, only time will tell how good the weather sealing is. But I would imagine with how many different lenses that Canon has come out with that have that external zoom, I would imagine that they probably have tested it pretty rigorously. So all in all, I would say I do recommend this lens. I think it's a great starter lens. It's a great first L series lens. I think it's very versatile. And I think over time, as you learn what focal lengths you really like, and that's something that this lens really taught me. It taught me what kind of focal lengths I really liked. And I've now since expanded and really diversified my lens family, we'll call them. But, you know, I now have an 85 prime. I have the 15-35 here. I have the 70-200. And I have the Nifty 50. And all of those cover pretty much all the lengths that I need. So I'm already set on lenses. I don't feel like I need any more lenses. But without a doubt, I really enjoyed shooting with this lens, and I'm a little sad to see it go, but I also know that I found myself not really grabbing it as much once I got those other lenses. So definitely leave a comment and let me know whether you've ever used this lens or if you're interested in this lens. I'll be sure to respond and give you suggestions based on whatever you tell me your circumstances are. And be sure to hit a like and subscribe, and follow me on all the social media platforms. I got all the links in the description. And yeah, so I appreciate you all. Peace out, heavy mommies. See you in the next video.